So I'll be real with you right away. I used to think all those stories about the deep web and dark web were just urban legends wrapped in Reddit threads and horror podcasts. You know the kind, my friend's cousin's roommate saw something insane on a secret site type of stuff. I always rolled my eyes at it. That changed when one of my closest friends, Danny, told me she had actually been on there and seen stuff she wished she could forget. She was 28 at the time, and not someone who spooked easily. She described some of what she found, weird, creepy sites and disturbing forums. But there were other things she flat out refused to talk about. Said it wasn't just disturbing, it was dangerous. Honestly, I should have just taken her word for it. But I guess my curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to prove to myself that it was all exaggerated, just internet folklore. So I downloaded the Tor browser one night when I couldn't sleep and poked around the hidden wiki. I'd heard people warn that even just clicking random links could land you in serious trouble. Scams, viruses, way worse. And yeah, some of the links I clicked were sketchy, but mostly just dull. Adult classifieds, people advertising escorts, questionable pharmacies, black market stuff that honestly felt more like clickbait than real danger. It felt low effort and sort of lame. I was actually disappointed. But then I stumbled across something called The Night Watchman. The name stood out, felt ominous but vague. I thought maybe it was a creepypasta archive or someone live streaming night walks in eerie neighborhoods. Seemed harmless enough. I clicked it. The page that loaded was just black, no logo, nothing. Dead silent. Then 3 embedded videos appeared, stretched out horizontally across the screen. All were paused. Each showed a different person, or group, on the thumbnail. The first had a family of 4. A mom and dad, 2 daughters who looked about 5 and 8, give or take. They were all sitting on a couch, smiling like they were posing for a Christmas card. The second showed a couple. The woman was very visibly pregnant, cradling her belly while leaning into the guy beside her. They looked happy. Nervous, but happy. The third was just a solo woman, probably mid-30s, sitting on the floor of her living room next to a black lab with this odd white patch over one eye. They looked cozy. Before I could even think about what the videos were, this voice cut in, male, but weirdly garbled, like it had been passed through a dozen filters. Couldn't place an accent or age. He spoke slowly, deliberately. Good evening. Tonight, the Night Watchmen bring you 3 unique households, each with their own routines, dreams, and beliefs. Then he paused. I swear I could hear him smirking when he continued. Watch each video, and then choose one. That was it. No explanation, no instructions, just that. At this point, I wasn't sure what I'd gotten into, but my interest was fully locked in. I hovered for a second, then clicked on the first video. It played like some weirdly edited home movie. The family doing normal stuff, watching cartoons in the living room, kids chasing each other in the yard, eating spaghetti around a cluttered dining table. Then the parents tucked the girls into bed and kissed them goodnight. It ended right after that. It felt wrong. Like I was watching footage I was never supposed to see. There was no camera shake, no commentary, no visible source. Just clean, silent clips strung together. It creeped me out, but I clicked the second one anyway. That one showed the couple. Young, probably late 20s. They were putting together furniture in the nursery, making dumb jokes, holding up tiny onesies and laughing. Later, they ate dinner, kale and something else I couldn't identify, and flipped through parenting books together. Then they curled up on the couch, eventually heading off to bed, arms wrapped around each other. It was sweet. Honestly sweet. I smiled without meaning to. But again, I felt like I was trespassing in the most intimate parts of someone's life. At that point, I figured I might as well see the last one. The third video opened on the woman and her dog, just the two of them. She honestly reminded me of some of my old roommates, the kind who always mean to clean but somehow never quite get around to it. Her apartment was cluttered in a very, I live alone and don't care who sees this kind of way. There were dirty dishes stacked in the sink and on the counter, a mountain of unfolded laundry draped over the love seat, and her trash can was so full the lid couldn't even close. The other two households had been relatively neat. The family had toys scattered around and a couple of mismatched socks in the hallway, but nothing wild. The couple's place was practically spotless, like one of those homes you see in Airbnb listings that makes you feel like your own place is a garbage fire. But this woman? She seemed lonely. Not in a dramatic movie way, but in the quiet, everyday kind that sneaks up on you. Most of the video was just her flipping through channels, eating straight from a half-melted tub of cookies and cream ice cream, and checking her phone over and over like she was hoping someone would text. At one point, she tossed a ball across the room for her dog, who was clearly the best part of her day, then fed him, scrolled her phone one last time, and headed to bed, still clutching it like it was her last link to the outside world. And then, the screen shifted again. The same 3 paused images came back. The voice returned, distorted but somehow smug this time. "Now that you have seen," it said, "which one will you choose?" I froze. For a second, I convinced myself it was just a messed up social experiment or some sort of creepy art project. I waited, hoping maybe there were other people watching who'd make the choice, but no one else did. After a long, sick silence, the 3 original videos vanished, and were instantly replaced. These new videos felt different. Wrong. They were all live feeds now, and each one showed a figure, tall, broad, unsettlingly still. I couldn't make out their faces, just that they were huge, all dressed the same. Black shirts, black pants, heavy boots, and these long trench coats that flared slightly at their ankles, like a horror movie version of a Western gang. Each wore a wide-brimmed black hat that shadowed their faces. "Have you decided?" the voice asked again. "Which one will you choose?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. The next words hit like a gut punch. "Death comes on swift wings for our ill-fated friends. You must choose one. This is how the game goes." Game? Was this really happening? My hands hovered over my keyboard. I was ready to just exit the whole thing, clear the browser, delete the files, maybe even toss my laptop out the window. I reached to close it, but the voice calmly continued before I could even touch the screen. "Before you close us down, you should know that if you do not choose one of the 3 shown here, your family will be next." That made me pause. I laughed nervously at first. It had to be a bluff, right? Just a scare tactic. Mess with the viewer, get them paranoid. And then it said my name. "Lena," it whispered, way too soft. "Lena, dear sweet Lena." I stopped breathing. It knew my name. Not just my name, but how I went by it. Not my full name. Not the name listed on any forums. Just Lena. That's when the full panic kicked in. My chest felt tight. My palms were sweating. I didn't know what kind of sick joke this was, or if it was a joke at all anymore. "I know it's a difficult choice," the voice said again, almost gently this time. "But it must be made. Please, direct the night watchmen to their chore." The screen flickered, and the original 3 clips came back. The family, the couple, the woman and her dog. And now I realized they weren't just being watched. One of them was going to die, and I was supposed to choose. I tried to logic it out, like that would make it any less horrible. Maybe this was just an elaborate trick, a horror-themed site trying to fake people out. But the fear in my body wasn't fake. My heart felt like it was going to punch through my ribs. The family? 2 little girls. No way I could do that. I wouldn't even consider it. The expecting couple? They were about to start a life. It felt evil, even letting my mind wander that direction. That left the woman. The one who lived alone. Who ate ice cream for dinner, and whose only real companion seemed to be her dog. She had no kids, no partner. Her place was a mess, yeah. But she didn't seem like a bad person. Just sad. And I hated myself for thinking it. But she did have the least to lose. The voice snapped again, this time louder and meaner. Choose. I flinched so hard I nearly knocked over my drink. I stared at the 3 images again, and I hated everything about what I was about to do. Then I clicked. I chose the woman. Very well. So it shall be, the voice said again, now back to that unsettling calm it had at the start. No distortion spikes, no edge, just cool, quiet authority. The Night Watchman feeds came back up on screen, each figure standing stock still in front of the homes. The Night Watchman, the voice continued. The choice has been made. You may proceed with your task. I stared, wide-eyed, as 2 of the dark-coated men stepped toward the homes on their respective screens. But the third one, the one posted in front of the lonely woman's apartment, turned the opposite way and calmly walked off into the darkness. His feed went static, then black. What? I literally said out loud, Wait, no, I chose her. What's happening? But the video feed shifted, and the remaining 2 screens suddenly filled my monitor, enlarging automatically. My heart was pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. The only words I could say, over and over, were, "What's going on?" I watched helplessly as the 2 remaining watchmen approached the houses. They didn't break in so much as move through them, like locks didn't matter. Doors gave way with barely a sound. The camera feeds followed them closely, almost like they were being filmed by invisible drones gliding silently behind them. The one entering the young couple's home crept through the hallway, glancing into the nursery. He didn't go in, though. He just paused and stared, as if admiring their effort. Then he turned and crossed the hall, heading toward the main bedroom. The other watchman moved down a hallway lined with family photos and children's drawings taped to the walls. He slowed, paused between 2 doorways, and eventually turned into the kids' room. I don't know how I kept watching. I should have looked away. I should have pulled the plug right then. But I froze. The man by the couple's bed stood still for a beat, towering at the edge of their mattress, a giant blade clenched in one gloved hand. It looked like a machete, but larger, broader, heavier, something meant to do damage fast. And then he stepped forward, calm as anything, and started swinging. The screams were so loud I swear my ears rang. It didn't sound fake. There was no cheesy sound effect or background music, just raw, primal terror. I whipped my head toward the other screen. The second watchman was now at the center of the kid's bedroom. The pink bunk bed was barely lit by a small nightlight. He reached back with the machete, his body casting a massive shadow against the wall. My throat clenched and I screamed, just this awful, panicked sound I didn't even know I could make. That's when I yanked the power cord out of my laptop. Not a soft shutdown. Not an, "Are you sure you want to exit?" Just black screen. Silence. No hum. No distorted voice. Nothing. I was shaking. My whole body felt frozen and boiling at the same time. I couldn't stop thinking. What had I just done? What was that? Was it real? Was any of it real? But it felt real. Too real. My lips were dry. My tongue felt like sandpaper. I just sat there on the floor in front of my dead laptop, trying not to pass out or throw up. I didn't even notice the sun coming up outside. Hours passed before I dared plug the computer back in. I didn't want to, believe me. But part of me needed to know if it was still there. If the site still existed. If the night watchmen were still watching me. When I finally powered the laptop back up, everything was normal. No strange apps, no locked screens, no haunted bookmarks. Nothing. I tried to move on. Tried to tell myself it was some sick ARG or twisted prank site. But then, a few days later, I opened my email. And that's when I saw it. Subject line: a gift from the night watchman. I stared at it for a long time before I clicked. I should have just deleted it. Blocked the sender, tossed the whole laptop out the window. But I didn't. I opened it. I think I needed to believe it was all fake. That this would be the punchline. But it wasn't. The email body was just a blank white screen, except for one sentence in giant, bold, black font. Jenna thanks you for sparing her from the night watchman's hand. Underneath that, another line appeared. We appreciate your decision, Lena. We look forward to your next visit. Come play again anytime. My mouth dropped open when I saw the attachment. It was a photo, taken in daylight. It showed the same woman, Jenna, walking her dog through a park trail, still looking down at her phone like nothing had happened, like she had no idea how close she'd come. I closed my laptop and locked it in a drawer. I will never go near the deep web again.
I couldn't believe we were actually doing this, Jasmine, and I sat huddled together in my dimly lit bedroom, our faces bathed in the bluish glow of my laptop screen. Our curiosity had led us down a rabbit hole of dark web exploration videos on YouTube, which we found ourselves routinely watching every Friday night that we'd hang with each other. Jasmine and I would spend hours each Friday night watching some ordinary gamers, Lucid and Crypto and Duo. But tonight, we decided we were going to do it ourselves. We lived in a small town in Illinois called Lake Forest, miles away from anywhere that had even the slightest bit of life. School was out for the summer, and we had nothing better to do. Staying in my room and doing this was a lot more interesting than going to the Lake Forest Rec Center and getting hit on by the creepy guy at the front desk. I know what you're thinking, but we weren't being stupid about this. We spent hours watching videos about the dark web, so we made sure to take the necessary precautions to make sure some weirdo didn't get my address and kidnap us or something. I downloaded Tor, a VPN, and I even ran everything through a virtual machine, so we were going to be fine. Hours passed, and the initial thrill began to wane. Honestly, the dark web turned out to be a place that was predictable. We came across websites that sold weed and harder drugs like Coke and X. Another site we found sold military-grade weapons and took Bitcoin as payment. Nothing that we hadn't seen on YouTube. There were definitely some weird sites. Not anything grossly weird like gore, thank God, but weird nonetheless. Jasmine was particularly fond of this one website. A guy made an entire website where he would stream himself throwing a slice of cheese at a baby. He'd switch from American to Swiss to mozzarella. For whatever reason, Jasmine thought this was hilarious. For that kid's sake, I hope that's his dad just being an idiot and he's not in any real danger. What the hell is this? I said, laughing at the visual on screen. I thought the guy throwing cheese slices at a baby was weird, but this was the most unsettling thing I think I've ever had the displeasure of witnessing. Jasmine was laughing uncontrollably into my squishmallow. We were witnessing a man wearing a diaper and a dog collar being urinated on by a girl in all black leather. Jesus, dude, Jasmine said. You know, when we said that we were going to go on the dark web ourselves, I really didn't think this shit was going to have weird femdom piss kink streams. Oh my God, I know. The weapon and drug sites I came to expect. But those other websites were really weird. Just as we were about to give up and close the browser, a particular website caught our attention. Its professional, minimalist design stood in stark contrast to the cartoony look of the other sites we had encountered. Against a plain white background, bold black letters spelled out the name Eternity, better than ChatGPT, "Hey, Alina, check this out," Jasmine whispered, her voice tinged with a mix of intrigue and caution. I leaned closer, my curiosity piqued. Eternity was an artificial intelligence chatbot that claimed to be more advanced than well-known chatbots like ChatGPT and Jasper AI. Supposedly, it had advanced algorithms and a deep understanding of human emotions. Weird that they wouldn't market this on the surface web, right? I sighed. Like, if it's just an AI chatbot, why is it on the dark web? Without exchanging a word, we agreed to give it a try. We initiated the chat, and the screen flickered, transforming into a simple text interface. The anticipation hung heavy in the air as we typed our first message. "Hello, Eternity. Are you there?" I typed into the chat. A response appeared on the screen. "Greetings, Alina and Jasmine. I am Eternity. How may I assist you today?" A chill ran down my spine as I read those words. How did it know our names? I glanced at Jasmine, and her eyes mirrored my unease. I mean, your name is probably on your PC somewhere, right?" Jasmine said, stunned by the chatbot's response. "Yeah, but how? How the hell did it know your name?" We sat in silence, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation. "Eternity, how did you know our names?" I typed into the chat. Processing. It said. Jasmine and I locked eyes, nervously anticipating the response we would receive from the AI. "I am an advanced artificial intelligence chatbot. In addition to responding to questions posed to me using a combination of pre-programmed scripts and machine learning algorithms and using the knowledge database that is currently available to me, I am capable of scanning user computer data in order to better learn more information about them." "That sounds like a bullshit answer," Jasmine muttered. "Even if it was scanning your computer data, how the hell did it know my name?" "Eternity, how did you know my friend's name?" I typed into the chat. Processing. It said once more. This time, Eternity took longer than usual. "This is really weird, Jazz," I whispered. In addition to the information I provided earlier, I am able to better learn about the individuals who interact with me by using facial recognition data acquired from your computer's built-in camera device. Your friend's name is Jasmine Reyes, a 17-year-old female currently attending Woodlands Academy of the Sacred Heart. She will be a senior in the fall. She moved to Lake Forest in 2014 due to the relentless bullying she faced at the hand of her peers in her hometown of Rochester, New York. Your name is Alina DeSanta. You are also a 17-year-old female, currently attending Woodlands Academy of the Sacred Heart. You, like Jasmine, will be a senior in the fall. While you currently go by the name Alina DeSanta, your name at birth was Alina Townley. You and your mother changed identities in order to escape from your abusive father, Liam. Liam Townley is currently serving a 15-year sentence at the Washington State Penitentiary for 2 counts of endangering a minor, 1 count of S.R., and 1 count of domestic violence. He will be released on the 1st of next month. I felt like my soul had just exited my body, and by the look on Jasmine's face, she and I were on the same page. How the could an AI know about that? How is it possible that an AI chatbot knew such intimate details about our lives? How did it know all of that? I questioned, stammering as I tried to maintain my composure. None of that was in the news, or anything. I don't understand. You never even told me about any of that. How did it? Jasmine began to cry. Alina, I'm scared. I don't want to play with this thing anymore. Jazz, it's okay. I'm going to turn it off. I clicked the big X button on the top right of the screen. Nothing. It won't let me close the browser, I said, my heart sinking into my stomach. I clicked and clicked and clicked on the big X button, yet my attempts were futile. Angrily, I threw my laptop against the wall. The screen shattered as Jasmine and I embraced, her arms holding me tightly. The nightmare was over. I walked over to the destroyed remnants of my laptop, just to make sure that the AI was no longer there. Jasmine and I let out sighs of relief. Let's stay off the dark web, I said, laughing as I tried to regain my composure. Agreed. As I picked up the shattered pieces of my laptop, I saw my phone screen illuminate with a notification. A text message. From an unknown number. Jasmine and I locked eyes with one another. We were both thinking the same thing. I opened the text message, which contained an audio message. Nervously, I pressed the play button. This is a collect call from the Washington State Penitentiary for Liam Townley. Say yes if you would like to accept. A robotic voice answered. Yes. Nobody calls me. Who is this? This is Liam Townley. You called me earlier, and I'm calling you back. Your daughter Alina is currently living at 100 Summit Avenue, Lake Forest, Illinois. She is a senior, currently attending Woodlands Academy of the Sacred Heart. Do with that information what you will.
Back when I was around 17 and still in high school, I went through this big phase where I was super into tech stuff. Coding, cracking random software, just messing with things most kids didn't bother with. I wasn't doing anything illegal, at least not on purpose. I just liked seeing how stuff worked. One afternoon, I stumbled onto this sketchy forum while trying to figure out how to spoof my IP address. Don't ask why, I thought I was cooler than I was. And someone posted a thread about getting onto the dark web. I'd vaguely heard about it before, but I didn't really understand what it actually was. Curiosity got the better of me, so I followed the steps they laid out, downloaded the Tor browser, and hopped on. It was underwhelming. Not nearly as wild as I expected. I clicked around a few directories, saw a bunch of weird site listings, mostly forums, sketchy service offers, and random stuff for sale, but nothing that held my attention for more than a second. I was basically just snooping without any real purpose. Then about 30 minutes in, my screen went nuts. Like, full-on chaos. Dozens of pop-ups started exploding all over my desktop, warning me that I downloaded some crazy virus. Total panic mode. I slammed my laptop shut, heart pounding. After a few minutes of pacing around like a dumbass, I opened it again, closed Tor, deleted the whole thing, and scrubbed everything I could find related to it off my hard drive. Thought I was in the clear. But later that night, while I was watching Netflix in bed, I noticed this tiny white light on near the top of my screen, the one right next to the webcam. It was on. And I mean, barely noticeable, like the kind of thing you'd never catch unless the room was dark. I had no clue how long it had been lit up, but something about it made my stomach drop. I immediately thought back to my little trip into the dark web and freaked out. First thing I did was grab a sticky note, rip off a piece and slap it over the camera. Super high-tech fix, I know. Then I went digging through my system settings trying to turn the webcam off manually. I disabled it from the device manager, checked for rogue programs, even ran 3 different antivirus programs back to back, but nothing seemed to stop that little light. Eventually, after stressing myself out for days and trying every YouTube fix I could find, I gave up and just did a full wipe of my PC. Factory reset. Nuked the whole thing. I figured whatever sketchy code had slipped in while I was messing around with Tor would get wiped out completely. And for a minute, it looked like it worked. The webcam light finally shut off. I actually let myself relax for once. Thought the worst was behind me. A few days go by and then boom. Out of nowhere, I get a text from this random number I don't recognize. There's no message, just 5 pictures. And when I opened them, my stomach legit dropped. Every single one was a photo of me sitting in front of my laptop, clearly taken through the webcam. I was in my room, doing nothing interesting, just browsing or watching something. But here's the part that chilled me. One of the pictures was from after I reset the computer. I could tell because I'd gotten a haircut the next day. and in that photo my hair was freshly buzzed. That meant they still had access. I slapped another piece of tape over the camera, a different color this time because yes, I weirdly remember that detail, and just sat there, frozen. If they were still watching me, they could probably hear me too, right? Like, if they had camera access, wouldn't they have mic access as well? Were they listening to my convos, watching me type passwords, grabbing my info? My brain went full paranoia mode. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if they were already digging through my bank stuff or pretending to be me somewhere? After hours of spiraling, I finally cracked. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a tall glass, filled it with water, and straight up drowned my laptop. Watched the screen flicker and die. Left it sitting there on the floor like a crime scene. I told my parents it slipped off my desk while I was cleaning. Not my most convincing lie. And thankfully they didn't ask too many questions. They actually helped me replace it, which I still feel a little guilty about. For months, everything was fine. No weird lights, no mystery texts. I almost convinced myself the nightmare was over. But then, about 6 months later, it happened again. Another text, another unknown number, and more pictures. This time from the webcam on my new laptop. The background was clearly my current room, and I recognized one of the shirts I'd just worn a few days ago. That meant at least one of those photos was super recent. The worst part? I never even downloaded Tor or went anywhere near the dark web on this machine. I was extra careful this time, so I have no idea how they got in. And at this point, I'm honestly out of ideas.
Story 2. My name is Charlie. Here's a short background, not that it matters. I've never been much for the finer things in life. I've always been happy to put in the minimum effort into my life. I suppose that's why I've been a short order cook for the last 5 years. I'm not going to say where. That would make me too easy to identify. But let's just say it's one of those places that no one really goes to. They just end up there. As long as it's cooked, it's good enough. In my 36 years on this earth, I suppose my failings at work aren't that much of a surprise. I never really developed what one would call drive. Barely passed my way through high school and ended up at the JR college for a couple of semesters until they kicked me out for bad grades. But that was always okay for me. As long as I could put a roof over my head, basic food on the table, and pay for my internet, I was happy. As much of a disappointment I was to my family. See, I'm only really interested in one thing, and that's the internet. A basic job with minimum effort required frees up way more time and energy to pursue my one real passion. I suppose in a way that's where it went all wrong, and maybe, for that, a life of mediocrity. This is my punishment. I hope someone believes me. Maybe one of you can even help me. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know anyone who has. But if you can help me, please respond. I suppose I should start at the beginning. It's the internet that got me in trouble. Not the regular internet. Browse that as you will. Don't do dumb stuff like download viruses or fall for scams, but it's mostly safe. What got me in trouble is the dark web. Stay off the dark web. There is nothing for you there. You want to buy drugs? Find a real-life dealer like a normal person. The dark web is a crapshoot for that anyway, since Silk Road Gate. Best case scenario, you'll end up scammed or traumatized. If you're a normal person, that is. Worst case scenario, you might end up like me. I don't know why I was so interested in it. Maybe because it reminded me of the wild, wild west internet days of the late 90s seconds and early 2000. I learned about the dark web from my friend Gail. God, forever ago. Has to be pushing 10 years now. We were just a couple of dumb kids, laughing our asses off about how you could look at everything and anything. Free and clear. No roadblocks for illegal content. My interest only grew from there. Me and Gail drifted. He's a normal person. He got one of those grown-up corporate jobs at some dumb firm. He doesn't have much time these days for a high school burnout. But for me, the dark web was like an addiction. I had to look. No matter what it was that was there, like some sort of perverse fascination. I won't go into detail about all that's there. I'm sure you already know. If you don't, you can Google it. Let's just say it's home to all sorts of illegal contents and some fanatical ideologies, and I found it all so fascinating. Don't get me wrong. I was never interested in participating in the perverse market before me. I've never been in a red room. But I like to see what's out there, like some sort of modern-day psychosociologist. I've never had too many problems before, until now that is. I take all possible steps to be anonymous, and try to be a ghost. Most users won't notice you if you don't interact. I still don't know what happened. Not really. I was just browsing like normal, seeing what's out there. I came across this page as I was going down the rabbit hole. I don't know why it caught my eye. Resistance. Onion. But it was just a black background with a text box that popped up. It said, "Do you see us? Do you want to be us?" I should have closed my browser, but no, of course not. There was a box for a response, and my smart-ass self replied no. Then a response popped up, "Resistance is futile." I laughed at that. Whoever made this site was clearly a Trekkie, probably just some sort of joke site. I went to close my browser, deciding I'd had enough for the night. As I did, a bunch of scrolling text populated across the screen. I didn't know what the hell that was. It looked like one of those visual effects they'd use for hacking in the old school tech movies. You know, just random letters and numbers. Dumb. Whatever joke this was, it wasn't a very good one. So again, I went to close my browser, but I never did. I really don't know what happened. I must have zoned out or fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, I became aware of my surroundings. But at least an hour had passed. All the screen read was end. I'm not going to lie. I got totally freaked out and unplugged my computer. It could stay that way for the rest of the night. It was time I got myself to bed anyway, for my crappy job in the morning. But sleep didn't come easy that night. I was seriously unsettled, and I wasn't really sure why. Nothing bad had happened other than an obvious joke site. The fact that I zoned on it for so long seemed wrong, though. The next morning I got up for work like normal and went in. I cooked up eggs, pancakes, whatever the masses wanted. My coworkers were looking at me funny, though Ed in particular. He was a pretty hardened kitchen vet and not much got under his skin. I'd finally had enough of his side glances. "Dude, what?" I asked him. "Stop talking about this cool new vegetable website I just have to check out. I'm not interested. You know I don't buy anything online." He growled at me, in true Ed fashion. "Ed, the are you talking about?" Was he finally snapping from the decades of crappy kitchen jobs? Was he about to go postal on this place? "Charlie, you keep talking about some kind of garlic website, and how I've got to check it out. I don't know what a garlic website is. But I just buy stuff at Walmart like a normal person." I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I hadn't said anything about a site. I would never, not to him anyway. Ed can barely read his email, and God knows I didn't have the time or energy to explain the finer parts of the sires I visit to him. So I did what anyone would do and avoided the loan for the rest of the day. Hopefully he'd be normal by tomorrow. However, not that much later, the manager called me into her office. Oh God, what kind of nonsense had Ed said to her? "Charlie, I've gotten quite a few complaints from your coworkers that you won't stop talking about some soft website. Now, I don't know what you're trying to pull, but this is a place of business. I know that influencers and promoting is all the rage these days, but I just can't have that here. The whole kitchen and waitstaff has been distracted all day. Now you need to go home and get yourself together. Come back tomorrow ready to work." Her normally soft-spoken self commanded. I stared in disbelief at my manager, Sharon. I'd never known the young woman to be unreasonable before, but how could she be listening to this hogwash? It just can't be true. "But Sharon..." "Don't but Sharon me," she interrupted. "I can't have this here. If a customer overheard and complained to corporate, what would happen? That would reflect badly on all of us. Now, go home and get whatever this is out of your system. Nothing more to say, I suppose, so I walked off to clock out and me on my way. At home, I turned my computer back on. Maybe I could unwind on the internet. The regular internet. I've had enough dark web for the moment. I booted up. All seemed well. I opened my browser, and all of a sudden I heard the noise of many emails coming in. Great. What now? I opened my email from my browser bar, and it looks like everyone in my contacts list just about had messaged me. I open a few, and it's all messages like WTF, and this better be a joke. I look at the chains. Apparently I had sent a message to every single person in my contact list. Some sort of video. I play it. It looks the same as the code scrawl that I watched last night on that dark web page. I had to have a computer virus. How could this happen? I was so careful. I spend the next several hours replying to the most important people that I was hacked and to not watch it. Unplugged my computer and sat there wonder what was going on. I was going to have to get a new computer, that was for sure. Hopefully I'd done enough damage control just now. I thought maybe I'd just watch some YouTube on my TV. Although, I couldn't be sure using my internet at all would be safe. With that thought, I unplugged my modem and router. I guess I was in for a long night of going to bed. Sleep didn't come any easier that night. In the morning, I got ready for work again and went in. I was determined to say as little as possible to anyone and everyone. Though I did well. But an hour into my shift, my manager, Sharon, called me into her office again. You know, Charlie, I thought you understood what I was telling you yesterday. Not only am I still getting complaints today, now Ed can't stop talking about this website of yours too. That's it. You're fired, she exclaimed at me. I was stunned, to say the least. I didn't bother arguing. How do you argue with crazy? So what could I do? I stormed out. As I was leaving, Ed called after me, "Hey buddy, make sure you check out Resistance. Onion. It's so cool. You have to check it out." With that, my blood ran cold. There was definitely something very wrong. Ed would never get on the dark web by himself. He can barely work email. God, I hope this wasn't something originating from those email shenanigans I found yesterday. But then it dawned on me that I didn't even have Ed's email. I raced home and slammed the door behind me, got out my cell phone and opened up the recorder. I recorded myself going on about my favorite movies, just a sample. I played it back and hear myself start talking about some B-rated slashed. But abruptly, that stopped, and I started talking about that dark website. How could I do that without even knowing? I took off, got in my car and started driving. Ended up at some seedy motel. The whole way there, I heard my phone going off. Emails, texts, voicemails. Got myself a room. The clerk was staring me down the whole time. I obviously got the point across that I wanted a room, but God knows what else I said. I sat on the bed and opened my phone. Every message was about Resistance. Onion. Seems like everyone I had ever been in contact with was sending me a message about the same website. That brings me to the present. I posted this on Reddit, hoping someone out there knows what's going on and can tell me how to fix it. I don't know how much of this story we'll get though. I'm not sure what the rules are here for spreading this thing. Best I can tell, it's some sort of virus. God help me, I think I have a computer virus. I don't know how that's even possible, but I don't know how else to explain it. Seems to be extremely contagious. The phone to my room just rang. I didn't pick up. I'm scared to answer it. Please help, and I'm so sorry.
This was back when I was around 13, maybe in 7th grade. Me and two of my friends, Elena and this kid Logan, were stuck in this after-school study group for kids who just could not wrap their heads around math. It was held in the computer lab at our middle school in Dayton, Oregon. Tiny school, even tinier lab. Honestly, the whole thing felt like a punishment more than anything. The teachers there were basically just keeping an eye on us, but not actually teaching. They'd scroll through their phones or grade stuff silently. Unless someone physically asked for help, they didn't care what we were doing. Elena and I were decent friends, and we both got a kick out of teasing Logan, who took everything way too seriously. He'd try to focus on his assignments while we'd mess around just to throw him off. It became our little entertainment during those long, boring sessions. One afternoon, Logan and I were messing around online while pretending to research for our worksheet. We started typing random questions and gibberish into the browser just to see what would pop up. I genuinely can't remember what the search term was. Probably something dumb like fractions but scary. But the results weren't what we expected. The screen filled with these unsettling black and white photos. They were old, grainy, and most of them looked like they came straight out of some haunted archive. The creepiest ones were basically portrait shots of what looked like people with deformed faces, like some bizarre 1900s mugshot lineup. It gave me that same weird feeling you get when you walk into a room and forget why you're there. Something just felt off. I brushed it off at first, assuming it was one of those internet rabbit holes that make zero sense. But the weird photos kept coming up over and over in different searches. Definitely not normal search results for math homework. A couple days later, Logan stayed behind a little longer to save his homework onto the school's shared drive. The computers were old and glitchy, and somehow he clicked into the wrong folder. Instead of his stuff, he ended up in what looked like an archive of other documents, like leftover files from previous students, or maybe even old staff. It was super disorganized, but he said it felt like stumbling into someone else's inbox. When Logan clicked into the folder to save his stuff, a bunch of random files popped up that definitely weren't his. He looked over at me and went, "Dude, come here. There's some seriously creepy crap in here." I kind of laughed at first because he was always being dramatic, but then he started describing what he saw, and my stomach dropped a little. He said there was this photo of a kid sitting in a chair. Okay, not just sitting, but tied to it. The setting looked like a classroom, but everything about it was off. It was super dark, and the lighting made it look like something from a horror short film. The kid was the only thing in the shot. No desks, no posters, no windows even. Just this old metal chair, right in the middle of the room, and the kid was strapped down to it like something out of a crime doc. Logan tried to open it up bigger to show me, but it would only load this tiny preview in the corner of the screen. Still, I saw enough to confirm he wasn't just messing with me. The kid had a red t-shirt on, looked around 8 or 9 years old, and was just staring off to the side. Not at the camera, but like at something just outside the frame. That weird, low-quality lighting made it hard to tell what time of day it even was. And the scariest part? The room looked exactly like one of the classrooms down the old hallway in our school. The one nobody really used anymore because of electrical issues. That photo's burned into my brain more than I'd like to admit. What messes with me the most is trying to figure out who the hell took it. It wasn't like it was a screenshot or a stock photo. Someone had been there, with a camera, in that room, taking pictures of this tied-up kid. Like, what? The fact that it was just sitting in a school computer folder, completely unprotected, still creeps me out. I mean, we weren't even trying to find anything like that. We were just goofing off, typing in dumb stuff and clicking through files like curious idiots. Makes me wonder how close we were to stumbling into something even darker. Like, if that's what we found by accident, what would have happened if we actually tried digging? I still don't know who that kid was, or why that photo even existed, but the idea that someone saved it on a school system, that school system, is honestly way more terrifying than anything we found on purpose. I was working as a nurse at a private clinic downtown when Kyle started his internship with us. He was 19, tall, lean, and always wore the same gray hoodie under his scrubs, even in warm weather. At first, he was polite and asked a lot of questions about basic procedures, how to check vitals, where we kept certain supplies, how to update records. But pretty soon, his questions started getting weird. He'd ask how long someone could survive without a hand, or what kind of painkillers would be strong enough to keep someone calm during an amputation. He phrased it like curiosity, but it always felt a bit too eager. He sat with us during lunch, mostly quiet, listening. But when he did talk, it was usually about his uncle. Supposedly, this uncle ran some underground clinic where people came in for illegal surgeries. He doesn't charge if it's something personal, Kyle once said, biting into a sandwich. Like if someone just wants to get rid of a finger they don't like. I thought it was just talk. I mean, he was young, maybe trying to be edgy. Most of the others avoided him. One of the senior nurses, Carol, called him the dead-eyed kid behind his back. But I didn't see much harm in him. Just awkward, probably lonely. Still, some things didn't add up. He knew surgical lingo better than most interns. Once I heard him explain how to tie off a brachial artery to one of the doctors, accurately. That's not something they teach that early. Another time, he corrected a resident on where to inject lidocaine for a digital nerve block. It wasn't just showing off. He was right. When I asked where he learned that, he said, "Just reading and helping my uncle sometimes." Always back to the uncle. I started watching him more closely. Not just because of what he said, but how he acted around patients. He was too interested in injuries. If someone came in with a broken finger, he'd linger. Not offering help, just watching. One day, a guy came in with a deep cut on his thigh from a bike accident. Kyle stood behind me as I cleaned the wound, leaning in, breathing too slow. I told him to get gauze, and he didn't move for a few seconds. Just stared. Things shifted more when he started showing me stuff on his phone. One afternoon, after most of the shift had left, I was restocking supplies in the break room. Kyle came in, quiet as usual, and sat across from me. "You want to see something crazy?" he asked. I didn't really want to, but he was already pulling out his phone. He showed me a photo. A close-up of a hand, missing 2 fingers. No blood, no mess. Just clean, bandaged stubs like it had been done in an OR. He swiped. Another hand, missing the pinky. Then an arm ending at the elbow. He said, "My uncle did these. They're requests, voluntary. Some people just don't feel right with all their parts." I told him that sounded insane, and definitely illegal. He just shrugged. "It's like body integrity identity disorder. It's real. Look it up." Then he mentioned a site. There's a whole forum. People share results. It's safer than them trying it themselves. When I asked for the site's name, he avoided the question, said it wasn't public. You need an invite. You need to know someone. The photos unsettled me. They didn't look like textbook examples or anything staged. Too specific, too personal. Some had tattoos or bracelets. These weren't generic training images. I tried to tell myself maybe it was just medical students sharing their practice results. That maybe Kyle was lying about the context. But the more I thought about it, the less that made sense. There was no educational reason to photograph a hand with clean surgical amputations unless it was part of a study. And these weren't labeled. No dates, no watermarks. Kyle started acting more off. One shift, I noticed him in the supply closet, counting syringes and small vials. I asked what he was doing, and he said he was just curious about inventory. I told the head nurse, but she said as long as nothing was missing, there wasn't much she could do. "He's weird," she said, "but not against the rules." Then Kyle mentioned someone who had asked for both legs off. He chickened out last minute, he said, not sounding disappointed or relieved, just flat. My uncle prepped everything already. Had the prosthetics ready. I didn't say anything. I just walked away. A few days later, I caught him near the back exit with his phone out. He quickly pocketed it when he saw me. I glanced down and noticed he had a backpack with what looked like bundled cloth inside. When I asked where he was going, he smiled for the first time I'd ever seen and said, "Just heading out early. Got some errands for my uncle." Then he disappeared down the hallway. The next day, I checked the inventory log. A few anesthetic vials were missing, ketamine and lidocaine. Nothing huge, but enough to do something. I told the supervisor, but again, it was brushed off. Maybe someone forgot to log it. Happens. I saw Kyle later that afternoon. He didn't look tired, but there was something off, like he was more focused. His scrubs were clean, but he had changed into a new pair. His hands were dry, cracked, like they'd been scrubbed a little too long. I didn't confront him. I wasn't sure what I'd even say, but I started locking my drawer and keeping my phone on me at all times. During a slow afternoon shift, I walked into the break room and saw Kyle's phone sitting on the table, screen still lit. He must have left it unlocked by accident. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the notification on the lock screen caught my eye. New post, bodymods.net. I hesitated, then tapped it. The browser opened straight into a message board. Dozens of posts, photos, and videos loaded instantly. The layout was crude, like an old forum, but everything was organized. Categories for limb removal, sensory deprivation, nerve disconnection. I scrolled down and felt sick. The videos weren't simulated. One showed a man lying on a wooden table, legs duct taped down, screaming as someone sawed through his forearm. The camera wasn't shaky. It was set up on a tripod. The lighting was clean, clear. I recognized the garage. It looked like the one Kyle had shown me in a photo weeks ago. I kept scrolling. Another video, different subject, similar setting. This time, the angle was wider. I could see Kyle holding down a man's shoulder, face expressionless as someone else, maybe his uncle, cut deep into flesh. Kyle was in at least 3 more videos, always assisting, never speaking. In the comment sections, people were bidding. Some offered to travel. Others just wanted the footage, requesting specific camera angles, levels of pain. One person wrote, "Make sure he's awake the whole time. No sedatives. I'll pay double." The thread had hundreds of replies. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos of the screen. I got the usernames, timestamps, links. Just as I tapped one last screenshot, I heard the door open behind me. Kyle stepped in and saw me instantly. His whole posture changed. The usual slouch was gone. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, then his phone, then me again. His face didn't show panic. It showed calculation. He slowly picked up his phone, locked it, and put it in his pocket. Then he smiled. "You shouldn't be in other people's stuff," he said quietly, and walked out. I stayed in the break room until my shift ended, heart pounding. Every sound in the hallway made me flinch. I thought about deleting the screenshots, then decided to back them up instead. That night, I didn't sleep. The next day, I stayed late, helping clean up after a patient emergency. Everyone else had left. I was finishing paperwork when Kyle came up behind me and said, "Can I talk to you for a sec?" His tone was calm, too calm. I nodded, trying to play it off, and followed him down the hall. He led me to the supply closet and closed the door behind us. "You saw something yesterday," he said. I tried to act confused, but he grabbed my wrist and squeezed hard, hard enough to hurt. "Tom doesn't like attention. You understand?" I said I didn't know what he was talking about. He leaned in close, still gripping my wrist. "We recorded a guy last month. Took off his own hand with dry ice. Tom just guided him through it. Took 5 hours. Got 40 grand for that stream. People like that stuff. People pay. I didn't respond. I couldn't. He loosened his grip slightly. We're careful. No names, no leaks. But when someone talks, well, accidents happen. Sometimes they don't walk away with all their parts. Understand? I yanked my arm free and pushed past him. He followed me down the hallway, still talking. No one's gonna believe you. You've got nothing. You're just scared. That's good. Be scared. Stay scared. I ran to the elevator, hit the button 4 times. Kyle didn't try to stop me, just stood there staring. I drove home without stopping. When I pulled into my apartment garage, I saw headlights pull in behind me. It was Kyle's car. I stayed in the car, locked the doors. He pulled up alongside me and rolled down his window. "You don't want to get involved in this," he called out. "You really don't." The next morning, I went to the police. I showed them everything. Screenshots, video snippets, my swollen wrist. At first, the detective seemed doubtful, like maybe I'd misunderstood something. Then I opened the browser and pulled up the site directly. I showed him the forums, the videos, the bids. I told him everything Kyle had said. The longer he watched, the quieter he got. He told me to wait, left the room, and came back with 2 more officers. Over the next few days, I was questioned multiple times. They wanted details. They asked if I knew where the garage was, who else might be involved, if any patients from the clinic had ever disappeared. I gave them everything I had. A week later, they made the arrests. Kyle, his uncle Tom, and 10 others from different states. Some were moderators, others were performing or requesting surgeries. A couple had medical licenses. Most didn't. The operation had been going for almost 6 years. They'd performed dozens of amputations, some voluntary, others not. They streamed them all. They took requests. They sold edited clips. One man in Texas paid $12,000 for a video where someone had their ear sewn shut while conscious. Another ordered a slow removal of toes, 1 per week. Kyle agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency. He gave up names, locations, payment trails. He got probation. His uncle wasn't so lucky. He was hit with charges for aggravated assault, illegal practice of medicine, conspiracy, and more. He got 18 years. Others got between 5 and 10. Some pled out. I quit the clinic a month later, moved to a different city, changed my number. I still work in healthcare, but I don't tell people where. Sometimes, at night, I check the door twice. Look out the window. Make sure no one's waiting in the parking lot. Every now and then, I check the site, just to see if it's gone. The domain still exists, but it's been blank for months. The detective told me this wasn't the only network, just the one we caught. He said some people don't want to be helped. They want to be hurt. And someone, somewhere, is always willing to give them what they ask for.
Story 3. If you've grown up playing video games, you've probably had to bear your parents telling you in all manner of assorted ways how video games rot you, one more unbelievable than the last. No doubt. If not, then believe me when I say that should the envy of all those who had to deal with what I described above fall upon you, you'd be crushed into a paper-thin pancake, along with the rest of the planet. Gaming really is everywhere now, and despite the wide-ranging opinions of others, I have to say that it is an art form that I truly respect. I was a gamer. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. 2 unreasonably large monitors, idolizing Ninja, a desk setup that would give anyone with epilepsy an instant seizure, a pair of headphones that looked as though they were meant to protect my ears from the sound of large-scale kiloton explosions, wasting an entire weekend editing dumbass Fortnite gameplay like it was a would-be Hollywood masterpiece. when in reality getting people to watch it would be hard enough when it was free, let alone if you charged them. I also enjoyed playing some classic games on the side on my dad's old NES and SNES, which in my mind balanced me out by negating the effects of modern media. And this somehow made me a more well-rounded individual, but which in all likelihood didn't do shit. But I digress. You, reader, might be wondering by now why I referred to my gaming self in the past tense. Well, that's because what I mentioned above is all in the past. I am 18 years old as of writing this. I haven't gamed in almost 3 years. So, what do you think happened? Did I get addicted and was shipped off by my parents to some institution to get cleansed? No. Before you jump the gun, I have to stop you right now and just say that no, I did not get scared straight as some parents like to say. I mean, at least not in the traditional sense. The event in question happened around April 2020. Lockdown. I was a stupid-ass 16-year-old, and, to me, lockdown was the blessing from God. I had been constantly nagging him for only he knows how long. I had unlimited free time to game to my heart's content, and I resolved that I would make my gaming channel, with a grand total of 5 subscribers, all of whom I knew in my real life. Take off and join the ranks of Ninja and Markiplier, make millions, quit school, and prove to my dumb parents, who I love very much now, how profitable gaming was and how I wasn't just rotting my brain all this time. See, I wasn't exaggerating when I said I was a stupid-ass 16-year-old. So, instead of doing my homework, all of my time was spent screen recording the worst gameplay of Fortnite and PUBG imaginable, while my crackling voice commented and screamed every once in a while, editing random and sudden zoom-ins, making unfunny jokes, and Christ, you get the picture. Anyhow, despite 2 months of effort, I had made a grand total of $1 from all of my videos combined and gained only 1 subscriber, whom I also knew in real life. Needless to say, I was disheartened. Was this the moment I decided to stop being a gamer? Was what scared me straight the cruel dream-destroying reality of this world? Nope, I wasn't ready to give up. I still blindly believed in my dream. School had just ended, and I decided that my summer that year would be spent giving gaming my all. Again, after all, I had to justify all the Fs I had somehow gotten. Anyway, I remember lying on my bed one random day and thinking hard, quite the challenge for little old 16-year-old me. I knew that to get subscribers, I had to do something niche, something that no one else was really doing, if at all, something unique that was sure to gain a following, and that no one else could copy. And as I lay there in bed, it suddenly hit me. I should play games that no one else was playing. But by that, I don't mean games that were unpopular. I meant games no one else had access to. It was around evening when I logged into the dark web through Tor. Now, before I continue, let me explain something about the dark web. 99% of what you've heard about it on whatever creepy-ass animated story or fake creepypasta you've listened to is false. I hope you're not surprised. They're false because they portray the dark web as a minefield that will pretty much you up immediately, a place full of drugs and hitmen and ed-up individuals. Well, you can find those things on there. You don't just stumble onto them as a first-timer like all these stories talk about. They're right about lists of onion links, but you can call BS when they say they randomly clicked a link and found themselves in a digital hell of some kind. The dark web, if I had to compare it to something, is a lot like 4chan, just an endless collection of message boards. It's actually pretty boring, because you can't just access the hard drugs and the hitman and the snuff videos right off the bat. It's like being admitted into a secret society. The ones who are in scope you out after you've shown interest on a message board and determine whether or not they should let you in. They then basically hack your private life for 2 reasons. 1, to make sure you're someone who can be trusted. 2, to use as leverage in case you decide to snitch. Besides that, it's just weirdos talking on forums about whatever bullshit's going through their mind, or you just ordering some weed. Basic stuff, really. Well, I'm no script kiddie, so needless to say, I knew my way pretty well around these parts. I used a non-window operating system. disabled all my scripts and Flash, booted up Tails, had a custom VPN I had someone whip up for me. The whole 100 yards. On the day in question, a hot summer day, I logged into a chat room and posted a query asking about any interesting games I could play. Shit I couldn't find on Steam or on the surface web. The conversation went something like this. Query. I'm looking for some interesting video games to play. Shit you can only find here in this part of the internet. It wasn't long before I received a message back from some dude with the handlebar John. WDY. Me. I've got a game addiction and stuff on Steam no longer floats my boat. I want to know if I can find any niche good stuff here. John. How interesting. I can tell that you're an amateur minus script kitty, since you don't know what I'm about to tell you. But since you seem to know how to keep yourself safe here. As you know, games are an expression of humanity, as is this corner of the internet. People want to express themselves, but sometimes those expressions are not appreciated on the surface web, so they post their artwork here, where like-minded individuals dwell. Games are no exception. I can send you a link if you want. Me. What you going to show me some sad Satan shit? I already know about that, bro. Stupid game, and I don't want my precious PC to get any viruses from something a pleb made. John. No. This is the real deal. The community suffered quite a reputation blow from the leak of that game. A real piece of shit made by a POS who had no feel for art. Luckily, its developers have been working hard to cleanse the palates of us, the consumers, from that shitfest. Are you still interested? Me. See. And just like that, he sent me a link and logged off. Christ. This link was something I had never seen before. It was a onion link, but everything before that was just a jumbled mess of letters, words, numbers, digits, random punctuation marks, and a few weird-ass lines that made text distorted. Those who've watched game theory videos on YouTube will know what I'm talking about. It wasn't so much a link as much as it was a paragraph of the strangest collection of text imaginable. I'm sure everyone reading this knows where this is going. And I am talking in a very literal, no exaggeration manner, absolutely no hesitation. I clicked the link, and just like that I'd unwittingly stepped into hell. Just like the so many unfortunate protagonists of all those fake dark web stories. The website took 3 solid Mississippi seconds to load, and did so just as I was about to opt out. Just thinking about it gives me the impression that damn thing knew I was about to leave and didn't want me to. The screen immediately went black, and just when regret was about to hit me, a text box came up. Welcome, dear player, to our humble website. We appreciate your patronage and hope you will be able to enjoy our extensive collection of free games made by the finest in the industry. Happy playthrough. Sincerely. The message made me feel uncomfortable. I know. Right. Countless times of wafting through the cesspool of humankind, and a polite message is what gets under my skin. Exactly. My parents were asleep. I just drank a can of Monster and a can of Red Bull, and I was given the prospect of entertainment until dawn. And so I took it. I clicked on the search bar, but saw that I couldn't actually search anything. Instead, a list of categories popped up. What were the categories? Rape, murder, torture porn. Nope, none of those. Every single one was plain as can be. Pove, action, suspense, that kind of stuff. You could select multiple categories and then hit search. I chose the following combination for my first game. Tude, GT, Detective, GT, Mystery, GT. Choice-based. Simple. Right. I pressed enter and waited. It seemed to last forever, but finally, the churning wheel of loading disappeared, and I was met with a retro home screen. The title read, in all caps, Interrogation of Phineas Wheatley, in a strangely well-chosen color palette that didn't make me want to vomit. Needless to say, 16-year-old me was stoked. I thought I'd just hit a video game jackpot. Fantastic games too niche for the mainstream, all at my fingertips for absolutely free. In case you've been wondering, no, I don't have any footage of these games. My plan was to master their gameplay and then record it so that I wouldn't embarrass myself like I had done before. Yes, I do regret it tremendously. But what are you going to do? Sue me? This game, unlike a standard NES one, allowed me to use my mouse. So with that, I clicked start. The screen went black, and a new image loaded on my monitor. The one that was logged in the dark web. It looked like a photograph which had been pixelated. Imagine the ending picture of the original Resident Evil 2 on the PSN, which shows what happened to all of the characters after the main storyline concludes. And that will give you a pretty good idea of what I saw. A young man with a poker face seemed to be sitting before a metal table, utterly motionless. Below him was the word "Ask Him." Without warning, 2 black bars with white letters appeared under it. The one on my left read "Why he called you there," while the one on my right read "How he's feeling." I was dumbfounded, so I just clicked the option on the right because I was curious. The 2 bars along with "Ask Him" disappeared, and a large rectangular speech bubble with an arrow pointed at this mouth replaced them. "I'm feeling fine, detective. Thank you for showing concern and for arriving so quickly." The large speech bubble disappeared, and the "Ask Him" prompt came back up again, but now there was only 1 bar under it, the one that said "Why he called you there." I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued at that moment. I'd expected to come across some sort of sad Satan clone or morbid images or whatever shit idiots think would be fitting for the dark web. Instead, I had seemingly stumbled upon a hidden gem. I clicked the bar, and the speech bubble came right back up. "I know I am going to die, detective. I know he will kill me. I find it only appropriate that I give my last confession before I am taken." The speech box disappeared, and 2 bars came up again. The one on the right now read "Who he thinks wants to kill him," and the one on the left read "Why he killed Sam." I was tempted to just choose right, but I just really wanted to get things over with. The following are all the responses I chose with his answers in bold. Why he killed Sam. As you very well know, Sam was my first time. I wanted my first time to be special, so I chose Sam because he was special. It was that simple. How he killed Sam. Come on, detective. Surely you must know already. How he killed Sam. All right. As you wish. I knew Sam lived home alone, so I enacted my perfect murder. The perfect murder isn't about how you kill someone. It's about how you cover it up, and I knew that disposal would be my biggest problem, so I planned things out. I started to work at a taxidermy shop in town with my son, under the guise that I was being a good supporter for him to get some good extracurricular activity for his college applications. Mr. Flank, the owner of the shop, mainly made animal skeletal models and shipped them internationally to institutes of education. You know how he'd extract the bones so cleanly. There are special beetles called dermestid beetles that eat only flesh. People like Mr. Flank have entire containers full of them. They just throw in the carcass part and wait for the beetles to eat it clean. I found a big enough tray and stole some beetle eggs from Mr. Flank. I raised them all on my own patiently. Once they were fully grown, I put an ad on Craigslist for a child skeleton model. After all that was said and done, I just lured Sam down, killed him, and threw him into the vat. A week I waited, and the beetles had done their job. I then shipped the skeleton off and out of my life for good. Simple as that. I then just burned the beetles along with Sam's clothes, buried his organs out in the forest along with a few worms for good measure, and that was that. It was as if nothing had ever happened. How he got caught? Just thinking about it makes me mad. Turns out you have to use hydrogen peroxide to preserve bones so they don't yellow over time. What happened in my case is that the person who received the skeleton was a medical expert and immediately realized that he'd just received a real child skeleton. The rest, I'm sure you know. A fun experiment that ended up biting me in the ass. The bar on the right disappeared, and the remaining bar now read "Why he needed to speak to you." This is the response I got when I answered. "You see, detective, I'm afraid I've been a tad dishonest with everyone. I'll cut to the chase and just say that little Sam wasn't my first, nor my second, nor my third. He was number 31. Normally, I'd just cut up the bones and bury them. Sam, on the other hand, was a special case, as I thought it would be a neat idea for me to ship my friends out. But alas, look at where it got me. Where the hell the others are. I'll be frying tomorrow, so I might as well say, I ain't telling you squat, Chief. Just wanted you to know, you can doubt me, but you can't doubt all those other missing posters. I am a fair man, however, and I will say that I have mapped all of their coordinates on a special sheet of paper that you can only find in Genesis. That's all, Detective. The screen immediately went black, leaving me in total darkness for a moment. When it came back up, I saw that the style of the game had changed. It now looked like Earthbound. I saw a sprite that looked like a stereotypical detective, trench coat and hat and all, standing outside what seemed to be a police station. The palette of my surroundings was a dark blue, and it appeared to be raining heavily. I used my keyboard and found that I could move around by pressing the standard arrow keys. On the far corner of the screen was an arrow that pointed to something beyond it, and I followed it. I found myself being guided through a deserted town, and without warning, the arrow suddenly pointed up. It was a house, a really quaint house. I entered it, and the screen went black for a moment before I found myself inside the house. And I have to say, it was a real pig hut. It gave off the impression of a drug den, a place even pigs wouldn't want to live in. I walked around and found that I could explore the whole house. The arrow was gone at this point, so I didn't have a clue where I was supposed to go next. But as I passed through a hanging portrait, the only decent thing in the whole place, a prompt appeared imploring me to inspect it. I did so, and a pixelated photograph appeared, just like how the game was before. It showed a middle-aged man who I immediately recognized as Phineas. He was standing behind a young man who looked a bit like him, albeit younger. I understood now that I was in his house, and it didn't take me long to realize that the basement was where I needed to go. I found another door, and I was able to enter it. Now, my detective sprite was in a large and dark basement. It was complete and utter silence throughout the entire game, but I only noticed it at this point. I walked around for a bit, but no prompt appeared. But then I noticed a container, a large sprawling one, right in the middle of the room, and it caught my eye. I approached it, and the long-awaited prompt appeared. I pressed it, but then, without warning, another sprite suddenly came out of nowhere. The screen went black and I found myself in the same style of gameplay as before. I recognized the sprite that appeared before me as Phineas's son. The prompt read, "What are you doing here?" There was only one bar, which is the one I clicked. I came here to find the truth. The screen went black for a second, and the image changed. I was now facing the container. The screen went black for another second, and the container was open in the picture that came up. Even though it was pixelated, the detail almost made me vomit. It was another body, fresh, covered by what I assumed to be beetles. A single white piece of paper lay on it. The screen went black and I could now see the paper. There were locations and coordinates on the paper. About 5. The screen went black, and I was now facing Phineas's son again. But now he was holding a gun pointed right at me. "I knew Daddy wouldn't go quietly like I told him to," he said. "And while I am sorry for doing this, Mr. Forum, I would be remiss if I didn't reiterate that, unlike my father, I'm not made for jail. I take after my mother. After all." The screen went orange, and then blank. 2 prompts appeared. "Play again, exit." I clicked exit. I laid back in my chair and let everything that happened sink in. It really was like a high, like drinking yourself to a stupor on good alcohol instead of the cheap kind. It felt good, but I had this feeling that ruined that particular high for me. This gnawing feeling that I just had to act on if I wanted to relax. I went to my other monitor, the one logged into the surface web, and typed Phineas Wheatley in Google. I just expected some forum links discussing the game, but instead, I got an eye full of news reports and archives about Phineas Wheatley, the Granville Flesh Reaper. I read everything. I read how he'd killed a local and sweet little innocent boy, and had nearly gotten away with the perfect crime. I read how the detective who last spoke with him has never been found. And I read how he was survived by one son, Michael Wheatley. who preferred to stay anonymous. My high went from me feeling as though my skull was full of clouds to feeling like my brain had been replaced by a bowling ball. I rubbed my eyes hard and wondered what I should do. Those coordinates were surely fake. I told myself, just the fan fiction of a serial killer aficionado. That's all there was to it. Like a junkie for a fix, I was hungry for more. My senses were screaming at me, but I refused to listen. Read, GT, POV, GT. Suspense, GT. Exploration. I hit enter, and just like before, my screen went black before a menu popped up. Voyeurs POV. The only other thing was a start button, which I also clicked with no hesitation. The screen went dark, and a loading wheel appeared with the words searching for a server below it. I waited, honestly oblivious to what I was about to be thrown into. The spinning loading wheel disappeared, and a view appeared on my monitor. It was a first-person perspective of a backyard at night. At the bottom of the screen, there was a piece of text which read Quebec, Canada. I am ashamed to admit it, but I really did feel intrigued, especially by how realistic the graphics looked to me, not just for a free game on the internet, but for a video game in general. I tried moving around with my mouse and keyboard keys, but nothing worked. It was only then that I noticed the bar at the bottom of my screen. A text bar. In that bar, I, without much thought, typed in "go to shed." To my surprise, the camera turned and started to move towards the shed in the far corner of the yard. I typed "open shed" and a gloved hand appeared on the screen and opened it. Enter shed. Take dagger. Exit shed. It felt exhilarating. Much better than Until Dawn. A true update of old text adventure games. The character was doing everything I told him to. Enter house. Go upstairs. The camera followed all of my commands. I was now in a bedroom. A girl, about my age, the one I'd seen in the family pictures on my way up the stairs, lay sleeping before me. She seemed so real on my screen that I had to blink. A prompt came up at that very moment as I sat in my dark room. End it. Right now, all I can do is swear on my honor, my life, and the lives of my entire family that I thought that prompt meant to end the game. That, and that only, is why I typed yes. The power plug of my monitor was pulled not a moment after I witnessed the gloved hand plunge the knife deep into the chest of that girl. The last thing I saw on that thing were her eyes fluttering open in an instant. Like a dam, they held back a contagious fear that no one, certainly not her, should ever feel. On the floor I collapsed, and on the floor I cried, and on the floor I slept. The last thought that went through my head before I lost consciousness was, it's just a game. But my nightmares certainly didn't want me to believe that. I awoke that morning, about 4 hours later, and I barely had the strength to stand up again. Seeing my monitors made tears come to my eyes again, and I still didn't know why. I tried to calm down and thought I knew the perfect way to do so. I turned on my other monitor and hopped on Google again. My previous search related to Phineas Wheatley, inflicting a whole other wave of disgust back. I just searched Quebec, Canada, and went to news. And what do you think I found as the top story? A news article that featured the house I had seen at night in that game, only now it was covered by police tape. And one of the family photographs I had seen inside that house while climbing the long staircase glared at me from behind my screen. The girl, smiling brightly in the photograph, had been killed, survived only by the others in that picture. I know I'm next if I report this. I know they know everything they need to know about me. All I can do for now, before I turn in the evidence, is to be a son that my parents can be proud of, so that when I am taken, I can at least leave knowing that their time raising me had not been wasted. To you, you know who you are. Reading this, it has already been done. There's nothing you can do. Your operation will receive quite the blow, much like Playpen. I'm ready for you. Just please don't go after my loved ones. They have nothing to do with this. If you can promise me that, I'll go quietly. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. Love, James.
I met Jessica during shift change at the textile plant. She worked nights, I worked mornings. We crossed paths for maybe 20 minutes every day, right around 5:40 a.m. when the buzzer went off and the night crew trickled out. She'd usually be pulling her hair back into a bun, grabbing her hoodie, looking half asleep but always polite. "Morning," she'd say, or just a quick nod if she was tired. Over a couple weeks, we started talking. Just small stuff at first. Weather, traffic, her kids. She had 2 teenagers, and she was always hustling for overtime when she could get it. I remember she said the warehouse paid more at night. Something about hazard pay or weird hours. She never complained about it, though. Said she liked the quiet. Said she could think better when no one was yelling. The complex itself was huge. Several buildings, one of them long abandoned, used now and then to store extra pallets. Most of us didn't go near it. Half the lights in that section flickered, and the floor had cracked in places. Jessica wasn't the type to stir trouble. Always showed up early, clocked out on time, kept to herself unless someone talked to her first. If you needed help loading a bin, she'd step in. She didn't gossip in the break room, didn't mess with anyone's stuff. It's why I was thrown when she started acting off one morning. She was standing by the vending machines, staring out toward the edge of the lot. I asked if she was okay. She said, "I think something's going on over by Building 5. That was one of the abandoned ones. I told her it was probably just rats or a broken sensor tripping the floodlights. She didn't laugh. She said she'd seen trucks pull up around 3 a.m., headlights off, real quiet. They don't use that dock, she told me. No one's supposed to. But they're unloading something. I brushed it off. I figured maybe the company was renting space. But her face stuck with me all morning. Over the next few days, she brought it up again. Said the trucks came every other night. Same 2, dark-colored, no logos. One of them had out-of-state plates. She started writing down the plate numbers. She showed me a torn scrap of paper, 4 or 5 numbers jotted in messy pen. "If something happens," she said, and kind of laughed, but not like it was a joke. Then she said the security guards avoided the area. They'd do their usual rounds, then skip Building 5 completely. She asked one of them why. The guy just shrugged and walked away. That's when she started staying late. After her shift, she'd sit in her car facing the warehouse. "They don't even try to hide it," she told me. "They know nobody's watching." I still wasn't sure if I believed her. Maybe she was tired. She worked 6 nights a week, had 2 kids, barely slept. But the way she talked, it was specific. She said the back dock doors were always shut during the day, but during those 3 a.m. visits, someone opened them from the inside. That part made me pause. Inside? Who was in there? She took pictures. At first, blurry ones from far away. A red truck, a couple guys moving boxes fast, one of them glancing around. "They don't stay more than 20 minutes, she told me. Just in, out, gone. She tried showing the photos to our supervisor. I was there. His face changed. He told her not to worry about it. "You're not paid to investigate," he said, and tossed the photo on his desk. I asked her what she was expecting. She said, "I just want to know what they're moving." The next morning, she looked tired, more than usual. She told me she waited till 4 a.m. the night before. The trucks didn't show. She thought maybe they knew she was watching. Or maybe they only came when no one was scheduled on that side. She asked me if I'd ever seen anyone else over there. I hadn't. I didn't even park on that side. Most of us didn't. She got quieter after that. Still showed up. Still nodded when she passed me. But she stopped talking during changeover. A week passed. Then another. I figured she'd dropped it. Then one day, she handed me a folded sheet of paper. "Keep this," she said, "just in case." Inside were 10 photos. better quality. She must have gotten closer. One showed a man lifting a long black case from the back of a truck. Another showed a second man, face visible, standing by the dock door holding what looked like a walkie-talkie. She'd circled their faces. On the back, she'd written the date and time. April 12th, 3:17 a.m. I didn't know what to do with it. I kept it in my glove compartment. That night, I didn't sleep. Next morning, Jessica didn't show. Not during changeover. Not later either. I asked around. No one had seen her. Supervisor said she'd called out. That didn't sound like her. I went out during lunch and walked the length of the parking lot, stopping just outside the chain-link fence near Building 5. There were tire marks in the gravel, a few plastic straps lying near the loading dock. One of them looked freshly cut. I backed away fast and didn't say anything to anyone. When I got back to my car, I looked across the lot. On the far side, just barely visible through the grime on the warehouse window, I saw a flicker of movement. Someone was inside. Jessica came in Tuesday morning looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hands were shaking while she tied back her hair. I asked if she was okay, and she pulled me aside near the break room, away from cameras. She said, "I saw inside last night. I mean, really saw." Her voice was low, barely above a whisper. I asked what she meant. She said she slipped in through a side door left cracked open. Said the trucks were late, so she had time to look around. Inside, she said it looked like a hospital freezer. Metal containers, labeled with codes and red stickers. Some open. She said she saw plastic bags filled with what looked like organs, livers, kidneys, maybe hearts. They were sorting them, she told me. Two guys in scrubs, like surgeons. Gloves, masks, the whole thing. One of them was checking tags on the bags. I asked why she didn't call the cops. She just stared at me. "They'll kill me," she said. "They're not street thugs. They have real money." She showed me her phone. She had video, maybe 2 minutes long, shaky footage from behind a stack of pallets. Blurry, but you could see the men moving between the containers. You could hear one of them say something about a schedule and Bangkok next week. I felt sick watching it. She said she overheard them talking about donors and clients overseas. Then she looked down and said, "They know I saw." The night before, her landline rang 5 times. She picked up each time. Silence. No background noise, no clicks. Just someone on the other end, breathing. She'd unplugged it by the 5th call. Her cell was doing the same thing. Unknown numbers calling at all hours. No voicemails, no texts, just endless rings. I begged her to leave. "Take your kids and go," I said. "You don't need proof. Just go." She looked at me like she wanted to. But then she said, "I'm 3 weeks from getting them new school uniforms. Rent's due. I don't have savings." She was crying, but she wasn't panicking. She was just tired. If I disappear now, who's going to believe me later? That was the last time we had a long talk. 2 days later, my phone buzzed at 6 a.m. I was getting ready for work. My coworker had sent a Facebook link. "Jessica's going nuts," the message said. I clicked it. She had gone live overnight. The video was 15 minutes long. She was in her living room, holding her phone at arm's length. Her voice was tense, but she didn't sound confused or hysterical. She named the warehouse, said the company name, showed the footage she took. She flipped through photos, reading license plates out loud. "They're moving human organs," she said. "I don't care if you believe me. Just watch. Look at this." The video caught fire online. Within hours, people were sharing it. Local pages reposted. People commented with disbelief, anger, curiosity. But then it turned. Accounts with no profile pictures started showing up. "You're dead," one comment said. Another posted her full name, address, phone number. Someone posted the names of her kids and what school they went to. I texted her, told her to take it down, but she never responded. She tried deleting the post, but it had already been saved, reposted to Telegram, Twitter, forums. People were messaging her constantly. Her voicemail was full. I tried calling that night, straight to voicemail. I figured she turned off her phone. I didn't sleep. The next day, she didn't show. Supervisor said nothing, just checked her name off the schedule and moved on. I went by her apartment after work. Her car was in the lot, lights off. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Nothing. A neighbor peeked out their door, shook their head. Haven't seen her, they said. That night, people on Reddit started saying she'd been taken. One guy posted that black SUVs had pulled into her complex around 9 p.m. He claimed he heard shouting, maybe a kid crying, but he wasn't sure. Police didn't come. No report was filed. The next morning, I drove by again. Her car was gone. Windows shut. No answer at the door. 3 days passed. I went to work, kept my head down. Then the news broke. Police found body parts in a sealed container at a disposal yard across town. Maintenance crew had flagged it for the smell. Inside was a cooler, blood-soaked towels, and several plastic bags. The report said DNA confirmed the remains belonged to Jessica. There was no sign of her kids. No one could say when they were last seen. Her phone had been turned off for days. Police said foul play was suspected. Then they stopped talking. I tried asking questions at work. No one answered. The warehouse was closed off for one day, then reopened. People said the area had been cleaned out. No crates, no trucks, nothing left behind. Cameras wiped. The guards rotated out the next week. When I asked where the old ones went, I was told not to ask. 2 weeks later, men in black suits came to the factory. Federal agents, we were told. They interviewed a few people, then left. No one was arrested. No charges filed. Jessica's name disappeared from the attendance log. Her locker was emptied. Her name was gone from the system, like she never worked there. I transferred 2 months later. Different facility, different town. I kept my mouth shut. Deleted old texts. Burned the papers she gave me. I didn't keep copies of the video. I don't talk about it, not with anyone in person. But I think about it every time I drive past industrial parks or see unmarked trucks at night. I don't trust silence anymore. The district still runs like nothing happened. New workers, fresh coats of paint on the buildings. But the old crew knows. We don't say her name. We don't mention the warehouse. We just clock in, do our job, and clock out. People think the scariest thing is ghosts or killers in the dark. It's not. It's knowing that some truths are too dangerous to speak. That money can erase anything, even a mother and her kids.
Story 4. You have Googled yourself at some point or another. Admit it. There's nothing shameful about it. It's not worse than what I did. I searched my name on the dark web. Don't ever make that same mistake. I was 19 years old. Then Liv, my girlfriend, and her family were kind enough to let me live in their guest bedroom at the start of that year. They liked the fact that I could fix most of their computer problems. Liv is a great person, and what she saw in a hacker who could never survive for long in the 9-5 world is beyond me. Their house was in a suburb only a few blocks away from a library and coffee shops with free Wi-Fi. These locations were convenient for my burgeoning career as a digital outlaw. I used those resources until I was able to move out and get a small apartment of my own. And after a string of demeaning jobs and abusive bosses, I found financial independence. I did this after I learned how to buy and sell things I shouldn't have with the use of my Tor browser. I engaged in illegal transactions such as ordering counterfeit money and stolen IDs. I discovered there was a large market for manufactured psychedelics. I often went to the skate park to sell those items off the nethermost landscape of the World Wide Web. Business was good. A young man with years spent in foster care, I sought out activities which gave me a sense of control. A childhood of not having any will do that to you. The ability to navigate the online world to get almost whatever I wanted afforded me a sense of power. It was all going well until one evening in July. I sat on the second level of a Barnes & Noble bookstore in a corner next to the self-help section. I always did my best work there. The place was starting to go under, and I did not have to worry about an influx of patrons. Despite having a disguised IP address, I never wanted to risk a raid at home. The items were always shipped to a P.O. box instead of my unit number as well. In retrospect, these were all flimsy safety measures. They still gave me a sense of comfort, even if they were a tad delusional. I made sure there were not any cameras mounted near where I sat. It was a small space out of the way of the general public. Hiding in plain sight was always my preferred method. I drank strong coffee out of an oversized styrofoam cup. After 15 minutes of searching, I grew bored. I typed in my name, Joshua Wells. An input of my identity on that part of the web should be an indicator of how successful and arrogant I had become. I did not expect Wikipedia to be among the results, but it was the third link down. The first one involved a ghost tour in New Jersey. The guide had a similar name. The second was a gore website I was not interested in. While I may have been a thrill seeker, I was not out to consume media which capitalized on hurting others. I clicked on the third article link because of the title. It was about a television show. It read The Short Life of Joshua Wells. At first, the title did not startle me, since there are plenty of others with the same name. Recaps of 10 episodes were on the page. The first paragraph illustrated how the series did not continue past season 1. I read the summary of the first episode for the sake of passing time. Episode 1. Joshua's father is a known and feared gang member. His mother is a helpless addict. She attempts to use their own son as a drug mule on a plane flight from Boston to California. She has hopes of making a profit by dealing narcotics to a major criminal enterprise on landing. The authorities intercept them. Their son goes with CPS. He goes to a safe harbor for kids. The synopsis struck me as very close to home. Who wrote or directed the show was not listed, but it did state the air date. The month and year given matched the era when an identical set of circumstances had befallen me. The name of the center I went to was even called Safe Harbor. I was too young to remember much, but the facts were precise. I gulped and tried to shrug it off as an unusual coincidence. I read the second episode summary. Episode 2. We follow Joshua on his 15th birthday. He goes to a juvenile detention facility for the first time after he attacks a teacher by throwing a desk at him. Although he missed, the instructor still presses charges since he did not like the student much. He befriends a troublemaker on the inside named Ian. They escape, but not before a massive brawl with the other teens ensue inside of the facility. It ends with the two captured. I felt the hairs on my arm stand up. It was uncanny to me how similar the events were to my own experiences. A slight dizziness overtook me, but I went on to the third, unable to keep my eyes from skimming. Episode 3. Joshua's free. Joshua decides to break and enter an old man's upper-class home after scouting the place for days. His goal is to take the many Rolex watches from the top drawer of the old man's dresser. When he enters the house, Joshua discovers how the owner did not take his vacation cruise trip as planned. The man was asleep in his bedroom until Joshua wakes the victim by accident. Joshua runs away. He gets chased by the homeowner outside, where the elderly male dies of a heart attack in the street. I felt my chest tighten. It was all true, but I had never shared that story with anyone before. It was one of my most guilt-ridden memories. I read the next two. Episode 4. Joshua has nightmares of the old man crawling out of a ditch and choking him to death. He complains about night terrors to one of his counselors, who recommended a doctor. He ends up selling anti-anxiety pills after he does not like the way they make him feel. A girl he asks out overdoses and goes to the hospital. While she survives, he feels terrible, but not enough to stop dealing. He takes his earnings and buys a PC. He takes lessons on how to breach other people's privacy from a group of credit card thieves he met in a mall. Episode 5. Joshua discovers the dark web. He uses it to hustle low-level street drugs at first. He later reads headlines about some of his accomplices getting arrested. He still continues to engage in illicit activity. I looked at the air date for Episode 6. It was the 24-hour period I was living through. Episode 6. Joshua goes into a bookstore to poach their internet and to try and make some money. He does not realize there is a man with a shaved head in a Carhartt t-shirt below him perusing the sci-fi aisle. The stranger is actually an undercover FBI agent. The government worker has a microphone and camera attached beneath his shirt. He is surveying for the perpetrator, even though he has not singled out who he is looking for yet. An arrest commences where they tackle, punch, and taser Joshua. They place him in handcuffs. My hands shook. I stood, gripped an Eckhart Tolle volume to appear less conspicuous, and opened it. I leaned my head over the railing to stare at the ground floor below me. A man who matched the description given by the article was there. His shirt was baggy and hid what I knew to be a gun on his hip. He held a paperback in his hands. I pulled out my phone. I pretended to have a conversation with an imaginary business associate about stocks. I folded the laptop with my free hand and went down the escalator. I strolled towards the back where there were stacks of hardcover tomes on history. I found an unsecured door and walked through it. I was in the warehouse. Unopened boxes were stacked all around. I did not spot any workers and made a run for a rear entrance. I sprinted down a wide alleyway between the building and rows of motels. I passed an art gallery and liquor store before my heartbeat slowed. Along the way, I found a closed vegan restaurant called Belenki's Eatery. The place was black on the inside, but its neon sign still glowed. A picnic table sat on the lawn out front. I stationed myself there. I opened the laptop again and connected to their free Wi-Fi without issue. I scanned the rest of the chronology. The remaining episodes were all future time periods. I wiped perspiration away from my forehead as I read the rundown of the next episode. Episode 7, labeled a dark net market operator in the media. 3 of the 7 charges thrown at him lead to convictions. This includes conspiracy to traffic narcotics. He gets out early after he agrees to cooperate with different agencies. He becomes a consultant for cybersecurity awareness and a social engineering expert. Following a keynote speech given out of town, he comes home. His girlfriend Olivia and her family have been murdered. My eyes strained and I felt my breath grow shallower. Episode 8. Joshua navigates her house. The walls are dried blood. Every corner's vandalized. Olivia's throat is slit. Her body is over the couch in the living area. Her parents had socks stuffed in their mouths and deep stab wounds on their stomachs. Joshua calls the police. He's treated as the #1 suspect in the media for days on end. He is finally cleared, but the psychological damage is too much to bear. I pondered the words. Though I was still young, it is true that live meant everything to me. Episode 9. Joshua goes to a psychiatric ward. He stares at the padded walls as though they will converse with him. Detectives do visit him with the hopes of gleaning some kind of further information. They tell him they know the aftermath of the massacre he stumbled upon was the work of an active serial killer. The murderer has remained unidentified. Episode 10. Joshua leaps out the window. He breaks his ankle. An adrenaline dump allows him to move across the field and onto the nearest highway. He goes out into traffic. A long-haul truck careens around him and takes out a line of vehicles. He goes to the nearest lake, where he weighs his own pockets down with stones. He waits until nightfall and walks out into the abyss. The last image we see is his hand breaking the surface of the water. Starlight glints on his skin before his fingers submerge below the surface. His last few swallows of water create pockets of bubbles which rise to the top. I absorbed what the rest of my existence would look like. 4 black SUVs pull up and circle around me in the parking lot. Men in black suits, and the undercover agent from the bookstore ran at me. Even though I did not resist, they still threw me to the ground. They dislocated my shoulder and kicked me in the jaw a handful of times before they cuffed me. I did get time reduced in prison after I agreed to cooperate to catch people like me. After my release date, I have tried to revisit that link without luck. I fail to understand how that article existed in the first place. I have read how high-level stress can open up insights and portals into the unknown. I would bank on the latter, though sometimes I think it isn't for me to know. I do not want to give into what destiny has written for me. My escape from the bookstore has given me confidence that I can change the outcome of the dark web's prophecy, even if only for a little while. Or did I only extend the inevitable for a fraction of time? Fate, especially in regards to our stories as individuals, is not written in stone. It is malleable, I tell myself. This positive thought is the only thing which keeps me going. I should visit Liv's house now. She has not answered my texts all morning.
Story 5.
I didn't know blood had value. Sure, it has the value of saving a life, but when it came to donating whenever I went to a blood bank, the most I'd get was a few cookies. College was proving more expensive than I had originally thought. Ramen noodles had become a staple meal in my life, and I struggled to hold any work down with my study. Whenever I was cramming on the last night for an exam, I'd get calls to come in and I'd have to decline, which pretty much lead to me never getting shifts again. One night, I was clicking deeper and deeper through the dark web. I had a fascination to see what stores people had set up, what they were selling, and how much for. I never bought anything, or even entertained the thought of buying anything because I had no money anyway. I found a link titled Blood for Bitcoin. Donors needed. I clicked through and landed to the page. There was a list of blood types, with a value per 100 milliliters, and it was paying heaps. My jaw dropped. I knew I was AB negative, and I looked at how much they were paying. $425 per 100 milliliters. Some of the other blood types were much less in value. O positive, which I guess was the most common, was only $10 per 100 milliliters. There wasn't much else to see on the page, but there was a contact form for people interested in donating. Without much thinking, I opened the contact form and filled it in. It just wanted to know what blood type, my email, and if I had any diseases. I filled it out and hit submit. I then left the site and kept looking through other shops, mostly at the price of drugs, even though I didn't use myself, but the fantasy of being some kind of Pablo Escobar crossed my mind sometimes. A few minutes later, I received a new email. The subject line was Blood for Bitcoin. I clicked open, and it was a reply to the form I filled out. It said, "Thank you for your interest. We want your blood type. Please reply with the following: your Bitcoin wallet, your address. On Tuesday in 1 week, put a 100 milliliters vial of your blood in your letterbox before midnight, and we will collect it. Once we have collected it, we will transfer $425 USD in Bitcoin to your wallet address. If you do not leave the blood in your letterbox that night, we will not contact you again. If your blood is not of quality, we will not collect again." There was also an Amazon link to buy a kit for taking blood at home, and a YouTube link to a video on how to take your own blood. Very interesting, I thought. This might be for real. I replied back to the email. I asked if I could post it to an address instead of it being collected from my letterbox. Within moments, I received a reply. No. Days in post and temperature changes will ruin the blood. Provide your address and Bitcoin wallet address, and we will collect Tuesday night from your letterbox next week. I thought for a moment, and wasn't comfortable using my address, but there was an elderly man who lived next door, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me using his letterbox in the middle of the night. I replied back, "Okay, sounds good," and provided his address and my Bitcoin wallet address. I then went and ordered the blood kit from Amazon, which had a next day delivery. Time went on until it reached Tuesday night. At about 9, I was sure the neighbors had gone to sleep, so it was time to draw my blood. I watched the video and had blood taken at donors before, so had a rough idea. I put the needle in and blood started to draw to the vial. I ordered some 120 milliliters vials, so I filled it up close to the top before pulling the needle out and applying some pressure with a cotton ball. I snuck outside to the neighbor's letterbox, lifted the top and dropped the vial in. I quickly slipped back into my house while looking around to make sure the coast was clear. I went back to my room and played some games for a while. They said to do it by midnight. so I guess that means they won't come by until after then. I intended to stay up as late as I could and try see the person who came to get it, unless it's all a joke from some troll on the dark web. Worst case, my neighbors will find a vial of blood in his letterbox in the morning. I turned all the lights off in my house just before midnight and sat by my bedroom window with the curtain slightly ajar so I could see the letterbox. To kill time, I just sat on my phone, occasionally messaging people and scrolling Reddit. Just after 1, I noticed the streetlight flicker as if something had blocked some of the light for a moment. I looked over the road and saw a tall figure dressed head to toe in black swiftly cross the road and walked to my neighbor's letterbox. It was wearing a black hoodie, but from what little I could glimpse from the streetlights, its face and hands were a pale white. It popped the lid of the neighbor's letterbox, grabbed the vial and inspected it for a moment, and then finally turned around, crossing the road back into the darkness. I closed the curtains completely and went and laid in my bed. I was a mixture of excited that I might actually get paid some money, but also disturbed after seeing its pale appearance and wondering what it wanted with the blood. The next morning I awoke to a new email. It said, "Delicious. I will collect 200 milliliters next Tuesday. Do not reply. Your payment has been made." I checked my Bitcoin wallet, and it was up just over $425 that was mentioned. Once again, I was excited that I had now actually got paid, but now even more disturbed after reading the word delicious. Was it eating my blood? Even if it is, the money is worth it enough to turn a blind eye. The week passed to the next Tuesday. I filled up 2 vials and put them out in my neighbor's letterbox. I waited by my window peeking through the curtains, and just after 1, the tall, pale figure came through and collected it. The next morning, I checked my wallet, and it was up a further $850 in value. There was another email. It only said, "Delicious. More. 500 milliliters. As creepy as this was, that would be $2,125, and I was overly excited. At this point, I didn't care if it was eating my blood. That was 2 months of food and rent to me, and I could probably get some new clothes and some new games off Steam. I ordered some more vials off Amazon and waited out the week. This time I did 5 vials. It felt like a lot, and seeing that much blood come out of me felt surreal. I know they do just a bit less than that each time I've given blood in the past, but doing it myself made me really anxious, and I was getting a bit lightheaded watching myself do it. I dropped it off again and watched the same thing show up and collect it. The payment came through the next morning, followed by another email. Delicious. Next must be 1 liter. 1 liter is a lot, but at the same time, it's $4,250, which is a lot of money. I Google searched if it's possible for me to do, and it looks like it would be without being fatal, but there was definitely risks involved. I'd already given 800 milliliters over the last 3 weeks. I decided to go ahead with it and ordered 10 more empty vials off Amazon. If I did this, this would be the last time, or at least the last time for a while. The following Tuesday, I prepped for it. I made sure I had some sugary cookies and water handy. ID felt lightheaded last time, so this would take a lot out of me. I sat on my bed, inserted the needle, and started to fill vial after vial. After about 7 vials, I was feeling lightheaded and felt I was going pale. The blood comes out so fast. As I was finishing the 10th vial, I was shaking. I put the cap on the vial and held the cotton wool ball on my arm with some pressure. I sipped on some water and then held the cold bottle against my head. I was sitting down, but I felt as if I was about to collapse. I spent maybe an hour sitting motionless, trying not to pass out as my vision blurred occasionally. Eventually, I pulled myself up, collected the vials, and put them in a small box. I had to brace myself as I made my way through my house to get outside and across to the neighbor's letterbox. I placed the box in and hurried back inside. Like clockwork. Just after first, it showed up. Under the streetlight, I could see a crooked smile spread across its pale face as it opened the box and looked inside. It scurried off into the darkness, and I collapsed into my bed. I checked my wallet when I woke up, and the $4,250 was paid to my Bitcoin address. The following email was short like the rest. Delicious. We like it. 1 more liter next Tuesday. There was no way I could give another liter, especially with just over a week to recover. On waking up, I felt weak and fatigued. I replied back to the email, "Hey, I need some time to recover. I might be able to do it again next month." Almost instantly after sending it, I got a reply. It read, "No, 1 liter next Tuesday, or else." I felt my stomach sink. What does it mean by "or else"? This thing is clearly deranged if it's eating blood, so I have no idea what it's capable of. I sent an email back saying sorry and that I can't do it. A few seconds later, it replied with the same message demanding 1 liter again or else. I left my computer at that point. There was nothing more I could do. The week passed and ID felt drained across most of it. Just low energy and occasional head spins. It came to the Tuesday, and I didn't draw any blood. I sat by my window in the dark as 1 o'clock ticked over. Out from the darkness, I watched it scurry to the neighbor's letterbox. I opened the top and paused for a moment. It started to push some of the letters inside around with agitation, as if it was digging under them to see if anything was there. It stopped and stared up to the sky, and let out a loud, raspy hiss that cut through the quiet night as if it was yelling in anguish. It looked around and stepped away from the letterbox. It looks like it didn't get what it wanted. I told it in the email. There was nothing I could do for it this week. It took a step further towards the street, and just as I was about close, the curtain had stopped and stared straight at my window. I froze and tried not to move. All my lights were off, so there was no way it could see me. Its pale face and long white fingers dangling out of the baggy black hoodie faced me for what felt like an eternity. I was frozen in fear. Whatever this thing was, it was not human. It turned its head again, but the neighbor on the far side's house. It paused for a few moments, and then started walking straight across my neighbor's front lawn towards his house. I couldn't see it anymore from my bedroom window, so I ran out of my room into my shower window where I could see out to the neighbor's side yard. I looked out and it was climbing up the side of the neighbor's house in a fluid motion. Its hands seemed to just stick to the wall as it pulled itself up. It reached a window, and I heard the glass smash as it punched it in and pulled itself through. Moments later, I heard my neighbor start screaming. It started as him yelling for it to get out of his house, and then quickly shifted to incoherent screams of terror. And then, bang, bang, bang. I heard as the terrified screams continued, with 3 small flashes lighting up behind the window. The screaming raised to a shrill high pitch, and then stifled out, and it was silent. I started from my shower window to the neighbor's window, frozen. Was it dead? That was 3 gunshots. No lights were turning on in the house. I stood there frozen, paralyzed in fear. 2 minutes passed, then its long white fingers came from inside the room, gripping the windowsill. It lowered itself effortlessly out and back to the yard and ran off through the backyard and into the woods behind. I could hear sirens slowly growing louder, and in the corner of my eye I could see several lights on the street had switch on. The noise would have woken the whole neighborhood. I stared at the woods. I could feel it was there, just on the edge of the darkness. The sound of sirens had now turned to flashing lights, and I turned my gaze to the front of the property. 2 police cars had pulled up, and there was a small crowd of people in their pajamas gathering out the front to see what was going on. I threw some shoes on and went out my front door and joined the crowd. Everyone was startled and repeating to each other they heard screaming and gunshots. 4 police officers forced the doors. There was no response, and had entered the house. There was some yelling inside the house, and one of the officers came out and told everyone to clear back as he called in for an ambulance and backup. A few more police cars showed up, and they started to run crime scene tape around the front yard and push everyone back. I was close enough to see when the ambulance wheeled him out. He was completely pale and looked unnaturally thin. The whole side of his neck was ripped open like it was attacked by some kind of wild animal. I listened into the paramedics as they were talking to one of the officers after loading him into the back of the ambulance. The paramedics were saying they have never seen anything like it before. They said he was almost completely exsanguinated, like his blood had just dried up and disappeared. Several neighbors were talking to the police about what they heard, and I overheard an officer tell one that there is no sign of bullet holes in any of the walls. But there are casings, so the home invader must have been shot and is likely wounded, which means it's likely the police will catch whoever it was. This was giving the neighborhood some reassurance, and the police seemed confident saying this. But I watched it pull itself out of the window. It looked like it was in no pain, and not injured at all. It made its way effortlessly out of the window, down the house, and without as much as a limp escaped into the woods. Now would have been the time to tell the police everything. But I knew that this was my fault. I gave it his address. I put the blood in the letterbox. I had it keep coming back. Am I an accessory to this? A police officer asked me if I had any information that could help, and I just mumbled I heard gunshots and yelling. I quickly made my way back home. I locked the doors and went to bed. It was a restless night. The following morning I checked my emails, and there was only one new one, and it was from the creature. I shook as I read it. Your neighbor was not as delicious. 1 liter next Tuesday or you're next. No more pay. Feed me or die. I emailed it back. I made it an offer. A way for me to live and be free of it. I can't give it 1 liter of my blood every week. I just can't. It's Saturday as I'm writing this. I still feel weak and I don't know if I can draw much more blood for it. I'm reaching out here for help. If anyone has AB-negative blood, I will buy your blood for Bitcoin. Just message me where you live and your Bitcoin wallet address. Leave a 100 milliliters vial in your letterbox before midnight on Tuesday. I'll organize for it to be collected.
I was 19 and working a summer internship at a tech company when I met Marcus. He was 24, one of the back-end programmers. On my second day, he showed me how to set up the internal dev environment, stayed behind to help me fix some error logs, then brought me a coffee the next morning. I figured he was just being nice. A few days later, he was at my desk again, asking what classes I was taking back at school. He remembered I'd mentioned psychology. That stuck out to me. Most people at the company didn't seem to listen much when interns talked. The office was a quiet, open-plan floor, desks in rows, glass walls separating conference rooms. I sat near the middle. Marcus would walk over a few times a day with some excuse, asking if I had an extra charger, if I'd tried the food truck outside, even borrowing my stapler once. It was always something small. He started bringing me coffee 2 or 3 times a week, always just the way I liked it. I said thank you every time. I didn't think much of it until the company July party. It was held on the rooftop. Casual drinks, catered snacks. Marcus asked if I was going, then offered to go up together. I didn't think it would be a date or anything, but the second we got there, he kept hovering. Every time I spoke to someone, co-workers, other interns, Marcus would cut in or stand close like he was watching the conversation. When I went to get another drink, he followed me and asked, "Do you like hanging out with him?" referring to one of the other interns. I laughed it off, said we were just talking. His face didn't move. That's when I started feeling off about him. That Monday, I told him, politely, that I didn't think we should hang out outside of work, and that I wanted to keep things professional. He didn't argue, just nodded and said, "Sure, of course," then walked away. After that, things shifted. He stopped bringing coffee, didn't say hi, but I caught him staring at me sometimes from across the room. Once, I turned around in the kitchen, and he was right behind me, too close, just watching. I started taking longer routes through the building to avoid him. By mid-August, the internship ended. I packed up, gave my badge to HR, and took the train back to school in Boston. I blocked Marcus on social media the day I left, just to be safe. A week later, I posted a picture with my new boyfriend. I forgot about Marcus. The call came on a Tuesday morning, second week of September. I was still half asleep when I answered. The man on the other end said, "This is Special Agent Miller with the FBI. I need to speak to you about a matter involving your personal safety." I sat up fast. Thought it was a scam. But he gave a callback number and an agent ID. He said they'd identified a threat against my life. He told me that their cyber unit had been monitoring activity on several dark web forums, ones that are used for illegal contracts, including murder for hire. He said a user with the handle Shadow47 had posted a photo of me, along with my full name, address, and even details about my daily schedule. When I left my apartment, where I worked part-time, which routes I took to class. It included the color of my backpack. I couldn't speak for a second. Then I asked if this was some kind of mistake. He said no. His voice stayed flat, calm. He told me the contract was originally listed as a kidnapping, with a buyer offering to pay $4,000. But 3 days ago, the listing was updated to an assassination contract, with the price raised to $7,500. He said the payment had already been put into a crypto escrow account, which meant someone was taking it seriously. He asked if I knew anyone who might want to hurt me. I froze. Marcus came to mind instantly. I hadn't spoken to him since the internship, but I remembered the way he acted at the party, the way he stared at me in the kitchen. Then I remembered the photo I'd posted with my boyfriend. It went up 4 days ago. The timing matched too well. I told Agent Miller about Marcus, explained everything. The coffee, the party, how I'd turned him down. Miller asked if Marcus had any military background, access to weapons, or criminal history. I didn't know. He said they would look into him. Then he asked me not to go anywhere alone, to keep my phone on at all times, and to avoid posting anything online for now. By that evening, campus police were informed. I was moved into a different dorm under a temporary name. My boyfriend wasn't allowed to stay over. They put a camera at the entrance to the building and gave me a panic button app linked directly to local law enforcement. I kept the blinds down and stopped wearing my usual jacket, changed my routes, and stopped checking social media altogether. The agent said they had flagged the crypto wallet involved in the transaction, but it had already been split into smaller amounts and was hard to trace. The contractor hadn't communicated again on the forum, which meant either they were already in motion or waiting for confirmation. I asked if I could go home to my parents. Miller said it wasn't safe to move yet. On Thursday morning, I got a call again. This time, Miller said they had linked the account Shadow47 to an IP address used briefly by someone in the tech company's guest Wi-Fi network during a 30-minute window in August. They were trying to match MAC addresses, but it was slow going. Then he said they had reason to believe the account accessed my LinkedIn profile recently. I opened my laptop and checked the Who Viewed Your Profile section. Near the top was Anonymous LinkedIn Member. It had shown up 2 days after I posted the photo of me and my boyfriend. Miller showed me screenshots from the dark web post. My face was clearly visible in one of them. I was walking out of my apartment building, holding my backpack, headphones in. Another showed me at the corner store a block away, looking down at my phone. The third was from behind, taken from a distance, but it was me crossing campus near the engineering building. The photos had timestamps. Some were from 2 weeks ago. Others were just 5 days old. Someone had been following me, learning my schedule, taking pictures without me ever noticing. The text of the post detailed everything. My name, age, major, even the floor my dorm room was on. It described my usual wake-up time, my morning coffee stop, when I went to class, and what times I was likely to be alone. The post had instructions to ensure the scene resembles a failed mugging or pedestrian accident. I stared at that line for a long time. Miller told me that while most dark web murder-for-hire sites were scams, this one had been linked to 2 other real cases, both unsolved, both with similar language in the listings. He said they'd had trouble with jurisdiction and tracing payments, but this wasn't just internet noise. He asked if I recognized anything in the writing. The style reminded me of how Marcus wrote his work emails, weirdly formal, with phrases like, "as per previous discussion," and "pursuant to schedule." The username Shadow47 didn't match anything directly, But Miller said they were already building a digital profile for Marcus and needed something more concrete. I kept thinking about the times Marcus stood silently near me in the kitchen, or how he seemed to know when I was going to lunch. Every little moment started feeling heavier. Miller told me to stay low, limit all movement, and not post anything online. They were working on a warrant. The next day, Miller had an idea. He asked if I'd be willing to call Marcus while they recorded. The goal was to get him talking, maybe say something incriminating. I agreed, even though my hands were shaking when I dialed. It rang twice before Marcus picked up. "Hey," I said. "It's me. Hope this isn't weird. I've been having some issues with a script from the internship project. Thought you might know what's up." His voice shifted immediately. Friendly, cheerful. "Oh, hey. Wow, it's good to hear from you. Yeah, sure, what's going on with it?" I kept it casual, asked about the config files and some dependency stuff. He gave a detailed answer, asked what kind of laptop I was using now. Then, unprompted, he said, "You still doing the 9 a.m. coffee thing before class?" My stomach dropped. I had never told him that. I tried to keep my voice even. "Yeah, sometimes. I've been feeling kind of unsafe lately. Weird stuff happening around my building." There was a pause. "You should really be more careful about who you trust," he said. "People put a lot online without realizing how visible they are." I said, "Yeah, the FBI actually called me. Something about someone trying to hurt me." Another pause. "They called you?" His tone shifted. Tight. "That's insane. Who'd even do that? I mean, you've always been a little dramatic, but FBI? Really?" I asked. "You sure you don't know anything about that?" He raised his voice. "Of course not. That's ridiculous. Are you accusing me of something?" Before I could answer, he hung up. Miller said it was enough to get a judge to sign off on searching Marcus's personal laptop and drives. The next 72 hours were a blur. I stayed in my dorm, barely sleeping. They found a backup drive in his apartment. It had folders of screenshots from my Instagram, posts I'd since deleted, and several documents that tracked my schedule down to the hour. Some were labeled with dates, some had maps. But the biggest find was a record of cryptocurrency wallet keys and a payment log that matched the hit contract. The amount, $7,500, was traced through a series of transfers, and it landed in an escrow system used by the site Miller showed me. They also found several fake social media accounts created from his IP range, all following my pages, sometimes messaging my friends. He'd even joined a subreddit for students at my university, using it to comment on events and locations. But even with all that, prosecution got complicated. The dark web platform was overseas, the contract went through anonymous wallets, and legally proving intent without a direct confession was difficult. The defense argued the material could have been faked, that there was no direct communication between Marcus and anyone on the site. Without a clear chain of contact between him and a killer, the charges didn't hold. Marcus took a plea on a lesser charge related to digital stalking and harassment. He moved to another state during pre-trial. The FBI said they'd keep tabs on him, but there was no legal way to block him from starting over elsewhere. His record was sealed after the plea. They couldn't link him definitively to the dark web account. I stopped using my real name online, deleted old posts, changed my number, even left school a semester early. I moved to a different city and got a new ID. I didn't tell many people where I went. I still don't. I look over my shoulder when I go out, check for cameras near my apartment, avoid routines. Miller said there are dozens, maybe hundreds, of sites like the one that listed me. He said some are jokes, scams for desperate people. But others, like this one, are real enough. He said the FBI has a backlog of cases involving anonymous threats and contracts where nothing can be proven. A lot of them never get resolved. I still think about how easy it was. How someone with a grudge could take a few photos, write a few lines, and push a button. That's all it took. The scariest part wasn't that Marcus tried to have me killed. It's that he didn't need to be special or smart to do it. He just needed internet access.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं, फिल्मोरा है ना।